everybody, welcome to another episode of Spear Tips. This is our companion series to Spearheads, where we are going through all of the various Spearheads as we play with them and doing faction guides for those Spearheads. If you're just getting into Spearhead and you want to play AOS 3, or you want to hear some various tips and trips, or even just like things to look out for playing Spearheads, we're going to go through them. So I'm doing one of the ones from the Skaventide box set today, which is the Vigilant Brotherhood, one of two Spearheads available to the Stormcast. In this Fire and Jade book, they're the two factions, them and the Skaven, have an additional Spearhead you can choose from. And obviously this may happen for other factions as we go through in the future, especially the Orc War Clans, where they don't have one for the, with the big guys, the Iron Jaws, which is actually funny because Chris, who's here today with me as a companion, you get to play against the Vigilant Brotherhood, so you can give some of your what to do against them.
That's right. Yeah.
Advice.
Yeah.
You have Orc War Clans as well, don't you?
I do have an Orc War Clan army, so I'm looking forward to them getting the Spearhead.
You're on the sidelines being like, just give me a Mock Crusher. I just want a Mock Crusher.
I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to run forward. I'm going to yell wah.
And I'm going to punch. Yeah. I'm going to punch the size of your face. So the Vigilant Brotherhood is a very small, they're one of two 10 model, technically 11. They slightly beat out the Sylvaneth by having a hound.
If you count that.
If you count that. But they have two heroes. They have 5 liberators, and then they have 3 prosecutors as their actual spearhead. And this is the stuff that came in the box set. So I really like this box. It's also available in the 2-player starter set, which you were thinking about picking up actually in the future. I think
I'm going to.
Which is like it's for all the Fire and Jade terrain, the card sets for playing, and then 2 Spearheads, which is the Skaven one and the Vigilant Brotherhood. So it's going to be relatively available to new players. So I think this is an important one for us to spend a little bit extra time doing. And because it's one of the 2 10 model ones, it's probably the easiest to paint. They're like painting Space Marines, right? They're in gold armor, or whatever color, armor you want to do. They can all be wearing masks, so there's no like flesh to paint on any of these miniatures if you want either. And they're pretty robust. So like I said, it is a 10 model thing. The Gryph-hound counts as a token. So the Lord Veritant, who is the foot hero in this box set, you basically remove the Gryph-hound when he fails a word save with a roll of a 1, and it goes away. But it's not necessary to have it painted. It's just kind of like a token for the table. And it doesn't have any like in-game effect outside of that. You have several battle traits, and they're mostly just once per game abilities. If you don't know a lot about the background for the Stormcast, they die and come back to life over and over again. And a big theme for AOS 4 is that they're starting to realize that ain't good for you. It's a little bit like Groundhog's Day. Like when you remember dying 10 or 11,000 times to get your perfect day, it kind of messes with your brain. And so a lot of the models in the Vigilant Brotherhood may have had too many deaths and they're not feeling great about it. So your 2 traits are Shield of Azure. So once per battle in your hero phase, pick a friendly unit. Until the start of your next turn, you have a 5+ word save. So it mimics one of the cards. You do have a card ability, which during the combat phase, you can have that once per game. You get it for the whole turn though. So pick someone you want to have survive. Usually you're going to use this in your Liberators because they're your biggest unit, your biggest stack of wounds in the table. Although there is a chance you might want to use it on your general if you didn't pick an enhancement that just builds in a word save for him. The other one is Storm Charge. I found this one to be pretty important for the Liberators because they're slow, and the Lord Veritant as well. Everybody else is 12-inch moves, so your guy on a Gryph-hound and your Veritants, or so your prosecutors rather, they fly or move 12. Being able to run and charge once per game can get you in the combat you need to get into. So there's no real you don't build around it. The only other thing you need to remember is that 2 of your units have reinforcement. That's the prosecutors and the Liberators. They ride the lightning back down, so you can kind of throw them away and have them come back. It makes up for how flimsy-ish the 6 wounds total 3+ save prosecutors are, and it means that you can be really aggressive with your Liberators, lose them, and still have them come back to life. So talking about these units, they're pretty easy to build because they're starter set miniatures. They're all push fit, which means that they're designed to be quickly built and put on the table. So if you've never built these before, you can't really screw them up. They're one of those relatively easy to put together and play, and painting as well, because they're all head to foot in armor. It's just some metallic paint, some wash, pick out the details, and you're done. My trick with the Stormcast in particular is just paint the whole thing gold. So dry brush like a bronze, then a gold, do all my leather strapping, and then wash the whole thing brown, and then go pick up my little details afterwards. Yeah. It's relatively quick to do. Now pre-battle, they don't super care about going first and second. They don't want to get alpha struck by certain armies. anyone who's super fast, like they will instantly lose a unit to the Sylvaneth.
Mm.
The Sylvaneth, if they fight against them, between the Kurnoth Hunters with the bows and the Jazz Hands that the Tree Lord can do, they'll lose the Prosecutors immediately and then have basically lost one of their respawns. So they might want to go first against armies that can deal it like an alpha strike, like the Eels and stuff like that, or who have like a strong shooting game. You in particular have a very strong shooting game.
Yeah, there's a few shooting units, especially those flamers. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You can pick on the Prosecutors, and I think you wiped them out immediately. You got them down to one model, I think. In the first turn.
And I just left them struggling along with one dude for a while.
They couldn't come back.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you can, I think you can't protect. It's also you can't protect the Prosecutors are so fast, but they fly. So the big terrain pieces don't block line of sight to them.
See them everywhere.
Their Diablo wings are sticking up, and they still get shot with bows and arrows. So going second can be important, but you very often want to pick attacker just because it means that you can get to at least have your first turn and get ahead on things. You have 2 enhancements. The first one is going to be strike where needed. So this is used whenever you retreat. No mortal damage is taken when you retreat ability. In addition, they can still charge even though they retreated. And then Blaze of Glory. I forgot during our game that I had that.
Oh,
my Prosecutor that fell back. Remember, I put the ward save on him instead, and then fell back and died. I should have just used that ability once per game and then not taking any damage. And I could have still charged afterwards too. I completely forgot about it. It's fine. And then Blaze of Glory is when you die. Make a vengeance roll on a 4+ you do a mortal wound when you die in combat. So if you die when you're in melee, you can basically bounce mortal wounds back at people. Of the 2 of these, honestly, the strike where needed is probably the most important because your unit count's so low and because you can use it to like get a single model to go grab an objective and stuff at the end of the game. I would almost always take that one. Blaze of Glory requires you A, to die, which you don't want to be doing, and B, you don't have a unit that has a ton of models. The most you're ever getting is 5 mortal wounds out of this, and that's if you completely get wiped out.
Yeah.
So it's either affecting a unit that, like, there's a single model, like your 2 heroes, or it's affecting a 3-man unit or a 5-man unit. I don't see there's as much value as that as being able to just escape from combat if you need to, especially with only 4 units total. Like, you had 6 units in our game, which means you could be 6 places at once. It's way more important for an army with 4 models to be able to be in multiple places.
And with the small board, having those... the wing guys being able to prosecutors being able to move 12 inches means they're jumping onto an objective anywhere they are on the board.
Touching a large terrain piece to score a card.
Exactly.
Or whatever
they're doing a thing with that 12-inch movement as well as getting out of combat.
And they can fly, which means they can go over your unit when they leave. So there's a lot of bonus to them. I don't see a time I would take Blaze of Glory over strike where needed. So even though if you're attacker, you're picking your things first, there's not really a downside to picking that one, I don't think. Your enhancements for your boss. Now, your boss is super fighty. If you're like me and you can't roll dice, though, he only wakes up in the very final turn when it doesn't matter and kills 2 models that didn't need to die.
Really kills them, though. They were real
he
dead.
He made an example of 2 Rancors at one point where it did not have any impact on the game except making me feel slightly better that my plan hadn't worked. And everything's revolving around making him better. So you have 2... passive abilities that are for the whole game. One is a 5+ ward. The other one is crit mortal wounds on your Hallowed Great Axe. So both of those are great. I'd probably lean to, like, if we're going to rank these, those are at the top, those 2, because they're for the whole game. They're not once per battle. And they're both equally good. I think it depends upon who you're fighting against. If I'm fighting against an army that has lots of rend or lots of mortal wounds, I'm taking the Hallowed Scrolls. If I'm fighting against someone who's got great armor but doesn't hit that hard, I'm probably taking the crit mortal wounds. So like against, let's say, Slaves to Darkness, I'm probably going to take the Hallowed Great Axe with the crit mortal, or against the Lumineth, who have good armor but don't necessarily hit as hard back at me. They don't have like mortal wounds or tons of rend. I'll take the Mortis Talon. Hallowed Scrolls, I'm taking it every time against somebody who does mortal wounds against me. So I'm taking it every time against, like, let's say, the whatchamacallit, the Cruel Boys who have like crit mortal in combat. I'm just gonna take that one. Cruel Boys are insanely dangerous and just get around my 3+ save. The other 2, and these ones are fighting for the bottom, is a once per battle first strike with the Quicksilver Drat. I don't think I'd take the Quicksilver Draft unless it was something that had a lot of strike first. I'd rather be alive and strike second. And then the Null Pendant. Roll a dice for each enemy unit contesting the same objective as your general. On a 2+, subtract the roll from their control score. if I'm really outnumbered, I'd like to solve that problem through killing and being alive more than anything else. And I haven't found that there's like, I might take that against goblins, maybe, right? Those two are kind of, I think the strike first edges the null pendant just because it could keep you alive potentially during a turn as well. But those two are kind of fighting for third and fourth. If I put them up, I'd say Hallowed Scrolls, Mortis Talon is 1 and 2. They shift depending upon who you're fighting against. And then Quicksilver Draft and Null Pendant, they're the ones that are fighting for the bottom. Let's talk about our units. Okay, so the units themselves, like a Lord Vigilant, I just said, he's a fighting model, 8 wounds, 12-inch move, 3+ armor save, 2 control. You have no control in this whole army. Your entire army's control scores add up to 12,
something like that.
The entire army counts as 12 models. All of your prosecutors are 1, all your liberators are 1. The Lord Veritant and the Vigilant are 2 each. You got to kill to get people off the buttons, or move to get people off, like they're empty. He does have 2 really useful abilities though. Deliver Judgment, effect once per battle in any combat phase. I can have somebody use 2 fight abilities per turn. So I can have somebody who isn't him fight twice. I never ended up using this because I didn't have a chance where I thought I needed, like I was bullying units that were almost dead anyway, so it didn't really come up. But taking 2 fight abilities can be a huge, you can pile in twice and fight. If I could use it on someone that wasn't him or the Lord Veritant, it would probably matter more, but I can only use it in the prosecutors and liberators. It has to be a non-hero unit. So maybe I could have, they have to be within 12 inches of the general to be the target. At the end of the last game, I could have used that on the prosecutor to have them power and fight twice. It might have gotten me into your boss. It might not have. We'll see. And then the really important ones, plan the attack. During your turn, pick an objective that's controlled by the enemy. Everyone in my army gets +1 to hit against units that are contesting that objective. So that one was useful all game to hit on 2s. And his like core attack stats being 3s and 3s on pretty much all of his attacks. So 5 of his Hallowed Great attacks are 3s and 3s. 2 rend and 2 damage. He hits him now on 2+. He can decimate a unit. If he could just roll the wound, it'd be great. But I couldn't get that off last game until the very end. It does matter for his Griftstalker though, because he only hits on 4s. So it does allow the Griftstalker to hit a little bit harder, 3 attacks. They wound on 3s with 1 rend and 2 damage. So he's got lots of damage output if he can land the dice. He is cavalry and a hero. He doesn't get the second half of guarded. So if he's within combat range of a friendly unit that's infantry or not a hero, he does get the -1 to hit all the time, but he doesn't get the you can only shoot me if you're within 12 and the closest target bonus because he's cavalry instead of infantry. His buddy, the Lord Veritant, this guy's equally tough, 3+ save, 6 wounds, only moves 5 though. He's slow like the Liberators are because he's on foot. Has a Staff of Abjuration, no range attack at all. It's 1 attack, 3s and 3s, rend 1, 3 damage. So 1 like really big, like wax McAdoo hit. The Judgment Blade is 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1, but it's inconsistent damage. It's only D3. He does get +1 rend though against wizards and priests because he hates them the most because he's an exorcist basically. He has Sense Unholy Sorcery. He has a 5+ ward save as long as the Gryph-hound's alive. But if he rolls a 1 for a ward save, it dies and he loses for the rest of the game. And then Gryph Crow. I don't know why it's a crow. They're both griffins. It's like it barks. Like it barks. Why? Never mind. I'm not gonna get mad about this. It's a Gryph Crow, not a Gryph-hound. And then a Cleansing Fire is its hero phase ability. It's a prayer on a 3+. You pick a unit within 12. Roll a die for every unit or model in that unit on a 5+, take a mortal wound. So you can like cast his fire from his stick at you. He's a cool support character. He's really good at like taking out small units, and he really wants to fight in Akshi because, as you saw, I managed to pull that card where one of the objectives was wreathed in smoke, and then he was just like safe staying there for the whole game. He loves being in Akshi because he's pretty killy. So, in fact, I would say this whole army likes being in Akshi because they're not controlling stuff; they're just mostly killing. The prosecutors, 12-inch move. They're just liberators that can throw their javelins. They have a 10-inch 1 attack, 3s and 3s, rend 1 D3 damage shot. And in melee, they get 3 attacks in melee, 3s and 3s, rend 1 damage. So pretty cool. Skirmishers, they have a 2-inch coherency on their actual like unit. So they can string out a little bit further than normal. It's cool for being able to have them touch a large terrain piece and also be on an objective at the same time. They can kind of control stuff. and they can sit back and throw relatively far. They're really mobile and they reinforce and fly. So you're always going to be able to see them, but at the same time, if they die, they can come back to life. And the Liberators, they've got a 5-inch move like the Lord Veritant does on foot, 2 wounds each, 3+ save, and 1 control. They hit like a ton of bricks, though. They're all crit mortal. All their attacks, if they roll a 6 to hit, they just go straight to damage. They skip the armor save step, and all you get is a ward save against them. So the Warhammers are 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, run 1 damage. And the Grand Hammer is 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, run 2 damage. And they have Stalwart Defenders. They get +3 to the control score while they're on an objective inside friendly territory. So it wasn't relevant for me because I kept marching out and leaving, or I just obviously controlled it. They just get overall +3 to the total score. They don't count as 4 each. They add 3. So 1 guy counts as 4, 2 guys counts as 5, yada, yada, yada. So then if I'm going first, I'm probably trying to kill your support characters with the prosecutors, grab objectives quickly, and then send in my Lord Vigilant to fight whatever the big fighty thing is that's coming at me. Cards, I don't care about reinforcements. We talk a lot about in SpearTipZ, the reinforcement card is being important to me. All my things that can reinforce already do. What I do care about is the healing potion card, the get D6 wounds back. My Lord Vigilant is my big damage dealer. I want him to be able to stay alive. So the healing card for heroes that happens in the combat phase, not during the hero phase, is really important. And then honestly, and this one's kind of weird though, the relocation card has additional value for me too, where during your turn, I can move D6 and relocate slightly. I'm very much wanting to be either in my territory with the Liberators or potentially out of charge range with the Prosecutors. That card has like additional value. Because I can already once per game Stalwart Defenders, I probably want to score the 5+ ward save as opposed to using it as a ward save on the Liberators. That's all I can really think of for battle traits for the cards. And then my closing thoughts are, this is one of the easiest, even though the model count's low, the recurrence with your reinforcement rules and your ability to be in places, this is probably one of the easiest learning Spearheads to play. So I'm glad it comes in the starter set because it's pretty, it just punches like crazy.
And they're resilient, so they don't get wiped, just because something ran into them.
Yeah. They have bad pairings. I think those mortal wounds, not great. Cruel Boys are a terrifying, terrifying prospect for them, which is funny because Cruel Boys were in the last starter set. So their Spearhead is actually the one they want to face the least.
Yeah.
And in that case, I would hang on to that ward save card for the battle tactics. But for the most part, they're pretty forgiving when you're playing into probably 90% of the other Spearheads. Just look out for things to do mortal wounds. If you're playing against them, be the attacker if you can, I would say. Try and kill the prosecutor unit before it gets to do anything, or kill the Lord Veritant because it just can't come back.
Or leave the guys with one less so they don't reinforce. Yeah.
There's a couple of little tricks there where I think if you can manage when and how they reinforce, or you can kill key pieces. And I think the Veritant and the Prosecutors, they're exactly the same from the point of view of durability, except the Veritant has a ward save. So it's funny. He has to make his ward saves in order because as soon as he rolls a 1, it stops. If you have the opportunity to try and kill either of them before they get to do it, they'll spend the whole game with 3 units. And those units either have to come back right away, in which case you can maneuver on the board to keep it so they come back somewhere weird, or just can't come back in the case of Lord Veritant. They're a great candidate for like an alpha strike. So if you have like a long ranged alpha strike, like the Kurnoth Hunters are in the Sylvaneth, the shooting attacks that your Tzeentch has, like your Flamers, if you dump the Flamers and the Carrick Acolytes into either of those units, I'd probably be in big trouble.
Yeah.
So you want to keep the Lord Veritant near the Liberators to keep him not an eligible target in round 1 to protect him. If you see a player expose him, just go jump on him and try and kill him as fast as you can. Because it puts the model counts way down for the like control scores of the whole army all of a sudden, because they can only stand at 3 places for the rest of the game, and they do not want to be able to do that.
And that guy does work. Like you want to take him out if you can. That's
if you can call if you can plan the attack on an objective and then send the Lord Veritant out after it. He's got, I think his wound, because the total potential wounds is 16 for the Vigilant. It's 9, but it's 12 for the Veritant. and that's not a huge difference, but it's a lot of flat damage all of a sudden on that guy. And they all hit more reliably because they hit on 2s if you plan the attack for the Veritan, as opposed to 3 of the attacks only hitting on 3s. So he's a bit more reliable overall. And then he's really good at cleaning hordes because the cleansing fires against a unit of like night goblins or whatever, you could just kill 10 night goblins if you're good at rolling 5s.
Yeah.
That bigger the unit, the more they explode.
And it's just one of those little ability that you often knock a guy or 2 down for nothing, right? So why not?
It's a free burn, basically.
Yeah.
And you can't get rid of it either. So there it is. That is our quick and dirty, because it's such a quick and dirty Spearhead, honestly, faction guide for the Vigilant Brotherhood. We will do one because Chris from Loads of War Games and Hobbies is painting up the other of the 2 Stormcast Eternals one, which is the one with Indrasta in it. It's called the Indrasta Spearhead. That's what it says in the 10, apparently. That's the least creative title, I think, for one of these. It has Spearhead in the name.
It feels like a bit of a cop.
She does throw a spear, to be fair, so it's not unearned, but also just feels like it's like a hat on a hat. You're calling a Spearhead.
Yeah, I feel like you could have done better with that.
Absolutely.
Play into the Monster Hunter theme or something.
I'm not impressed. Anyway, Chris from Loads of War is painting it up. He just finished painting Indrasta, so he'll be back to play with that one coming up soon. And you'll also get to see today the Tzeentch one, which Chris just played, which is called the Fluxblade Coven. Will be our second Spearheads today. So thanks for hanging out with me while I did this.
Hey,
thanks for watching. Next time, Ash.